Good evening. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to the Real Politique. I am Dr. Shane Mohammed, and this is our first episode. For those of you asking out there, what is the Real Politique? I want to give you some context before we continue into our dialogue and discussion this evening. Now, the theory of Realpolitik was theorized by Niccolò Machiavelli, an Italian philosopher who wrote the book called The Prince. And in The Prince, he says, "A great many men have imagined states and princedoms such as nobody ever saw or knew in the real world. For there is such a difference between the way we really live and the way we ought to live, that the man who neglects the real study of the ideal will learn how to accomplish his ruin, not his salvation." Now, Machiavelli's notions of practicality over ethics pose quite a problem for modern democratic societies, meaning that the Machiavellian theory poses a serious threat to how do modern democratic societies work today because of the fact that the Realpolitik exists. He goes on to say that there's an interest in maintaining the honesty of leaders and institutions. The book, The Prince, challenges the wisdom and popular demand for accountability, arguing that the mere illusion of ethical conduct is sufficient. It presents a frank and troubling question, which is relevant to us here in Trinidad and Tobago. Do we really want to know everything our leaders do behind closed doors? Is it that you want to know? Because as far as Machiavelli is concerned, and as far as I'm concerned as a political scientist, understanding Machiavelli's disposition, there are things that are happening behind closed doors and things that are only seen at the surface. This evening, I'm joined by former Member of Parliament for Couva North, former member of the National Executive of the United National Congress, and candidate for the upcoming UNC internal elections for the position of Elections Officer, a post that she previously held. I want to say a welcome and good evening to former MP, Ms. Ramona Ramdial. Ms. Ramdial?
Hi, thank you, Shane. It's a pleasure to be on this program. Let me congratulate you. Yeah, it's that time again within the United National Congress. We have our internal elections that was due, or that is due this year. So we are in the heat of things. We're in the heat of the campaign. I am running for the position of Elections Officer once more. As you know, I served in that position for 5 years, between 2010 to 2015, while we also served in government in the People's Partnership government back then. So I think that I am competent for the job. I think I know the job very well. I did a lot of things over that 5-year period whilst I was the elections officer. One of it, of course, also being that of the director of the UNC Academy that I spearheaded for 5 years in terms of attracting young persons to the party and into our politics, getting them in, training them in various areas within our political system, both nationally and within the party structure. So here I am again. I believe in change. Change is very important. As you know, I also believe that our party is at its lowest. I think when you look at the opposition's performance in parliament, it is really, for want of a better word, terrible. It is lacking. Mentoring is needed, especially for the first timers. And I think also that our party needs new leadership. The political leader, having been at the helm since 2010, has not been able to win a national elections thereafter. We've lost 2 general elections, local government elections, and I know for a fact that the party's membership is calling out for change, and they want to be able to make that change. And I think that this opportunity where we have 3 persons and only 3 positions being contested within the NATEX, is an indication, or it is also an appeal really for the position of political leader, for the membership to come out and signal and to make that change that is necessary.
Ramona, you made the point about persons. There are only 3 contested positions. That is your position, which is elections officer. There is the position Dr. Glenn Ramadas Singh is running for party organizer, and Dr. Fuad Khan is running for political leader, and that in itself is a gigantic task. Now, do you believe that the fact that there are 24 positions on the national executive and there are only 3 opponents and 3 persons have put their names forward in terms of contesting these elections, why is it that you've highlighted the fact that Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has lost 2 consecutive general elections? That's one. She claims to have done very well at the last local government election, where she was able to tie with the PNM 7-7. But you will know, and even I can tell you that, and tell the population that even though you control, and by the very admission of UNC councillors and UNC chairmen, that even though they run and they manage these corporations, they are still devoid of money that is required for the proper management of the entire, for their bursaries, right?
Agreed, yes.
For their different bursaries. So the question arises, therefore, that in light of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa's popularity dropping as the years go by, and I think it may have dropped significantly after her comments about the surname of Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis. Why do you think that there is such a, what I would say, why are there only 3 persons contesting as quote-unquote opponents?
Yeah, for various reasons. Let me just say that there's another internal elections due in 2024. That is another NATEX elections, however. The political leader elections is due in 2025. So some of my former colleagues, a lot of the party membership thinks that this is not the time, now is not the time to challenge and come together. They think that 2024 and 2025 will be the time to challenge. But let me say I disagree with that, because I experienced while I sat in NATEX during our tenure between 2010 to 2015, that in 2014, the internal elections were deferred because we were going into general elections in 2015. And the reasoning was that it was too close to a general election to upset the party and to go into an internal election. So I believe that the same thing would happen in 2024, in 2025, where the NATEX may take a decision to defer the internals, which they can do and which they have done. So that is why I decided to put my hat into the ring again during this internals. I mean, if it does happen in 2024, well, we'll go at it again. But the mere fact that we're discussing that only 3 positions are being contested, that's one of the reasons why. Another reason is, of course, the disenchantment and the belief that the internal elections is somewhat engineered, widely believed that it is engineered to the incumbent's benefit, and that is because the incumbent controls the party membership listing, controls the election process at the end of the day, where you have constituency offices running the constituency elections. And that is why I called earlier on in the year for an independent body to carry out our elections within the United National Congress. So you have that disenchantment also. So these things have played into the minds and the psyche of the membership over the years, and a lot of people are disenchanted. And that's why you see that a lot of them did not want to come forward, because they just think that it's an exercise in futility at the end of the day.
But Ramona, at the end of the day, you've made a very good point about there's several elections that are due in 2025. There's going to be the general election is due, and then it's going to be closely followed by the THA elections, and that is going to take a lot of take up a lot of people's focus and energies, right? Therefore, if we are in June 2022, and you are saying to me that your colleagues who have decided to not run, that they are going to possibly look at running in 2024, and then the political leader is going to run again in 2025. You've just justified and made a point that behind closed doors that there's no guarantee that these elections are going to happen. And the National Executive is empowered by the Constitution to pass a resolution that the National Executive continues to exercise its functions in light of the upcoming elections from a national perspective. So therefore, I would put it to you that your colleagues who have chosen to not and to hold their hand in running are living in a fool's paradise.
I want to believe so. Yes, definitely. Because, you know, we've had many discussions and this is what obtains. I also know well, not for a fact, but I also, you know, you hear things within the party and the membership and all of that. And a lot are waiting
so that's the real politique that you're hearing.
That's the real politique, you know, and you hear person saying, well, you know, when we go into the local government elections, you know, they have no confidence in winning. They don't see the UNC winning the local government elections for many different reasons. And therefore, when that elections is lost, you know, that is the time thereafter to put pressure on the leader moving forward. I mean, all of these things can be possible, Shane. All of it can be possible. But you know, you have to come together, you have to unite, you have to be on the same page. So that in itself is also an issue in terms of getting...
So those that are on the outside and those that are, let's say, dissidents are also divided. So you have a division within a division. So therefore, if you have a division within a division, the result will be nil, right? Because one cancels out the rest, and therefore Mrs. Prasad Bissessa reigns supreme. Now, you know, tell me something. You have held the position of election officer before, and you raised the point that you held, you ran and you managed the UNC Academy, which is partially, you also held the role of you straddled between elections officer and education officer.
Yes.
But tell me, what are the challenges that you are seeing happening in the run-up to this election that is cause for concern?
There are so many challenges, you will not believe. Today, the party sent out its listing of venues. Those venues we are very familiar with, and the number of polling stations per venue we are also very familiar with. However, there are election rules in the ad at the bottom of the listing of venues. And one of those rules are, even though you are a party card holder and a legit UNC member with a party card, if your name is not on the list, you will not be able to vote. So that's number one. I have a serious problem with that. Let me just say that before 2015, if you held a party card and you went to any polling station to vote, you were allowed to vote. That changed after 2015 to, well, after 2016, that internals after we lost the general elections. That changed to, if you have a party card and your name is not on the list that is produced for that particular election, then you cannot vote. I have a serious problem with that. I remember in 2020, Vasan Bharat's father could not vote until a NATEX member intervened because he had his life membership party card. He went to the station to vote. His name was not on the list. And there was a bacchanal that ensued there, because how can you not have this stalwart and a founding member of the party not being able to vote because his name was there? He's widely known, he's popular, and he could not vote even though he had a party card. So until a NATEX member intervened, he was there waiting. and he could not vote until that NACEX member intervened, and then he got to vote. So that's it. And I want to make an appeal this evening.
I want to interject, Ramona, before you make that
Yes.
appeal. We need to take a break, and when we take a
Sure.
break, when we come back from that break, we're going to hold that appeal, and then we're going to
Sure.
go into some of the other issues that are arising. Okay? We'll be
Sure.
right back.
No.
Hello, this is Dr. Shane Mohammed, geopolitical scientist and lecturer. I invite you to join me for a new exciting show on IETV, 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. The Real Politique is not an ordinary talk show, but one of education, enlightenment, and examination. Here we discuss not just the surface issues, but the factors, shortcomings, and lack of will to change the socio-economic and political realities facing our nation. We ask the hard questions, seek out the difficult answers, whilst at the same time creating a space for dialogue and discussion which all of society can learn, understand, and hopefully respond actively and for the greater good of the Republic. This is the Real Politique. Right, and welcome back. Welcome back. We continue our conversation with Ms. Ramdial, and before the break, she was talking about the appeal. So we go back to Ms. Ramdial. Ramona,
Yes.
tell us. Let's hear about what the issues are, and tell me what the appeal that you want to make.
All right, so that is one of the issue that we have. Another issue that we have is that the membership listing is available at a cost, of course.
What?
It's available at a cost of $500.
What?
Yes.
You all are being robbed?
Well, I mean, it's been like this for a while, since 2016. So yes, so the membership listing has been given in hard copy.
Ramona, let me
where
just
I think-
interject to you for a second.
Yes.
Are there written rules, and were there written rules for the conducting of and how an election is to be conducted?
What you're talking about within the UNC Constitution?
Yes.
There is a manual. Yes, we have an election manual. Yes.
And that election manual is on in the library of Rienzi complex, collecting dust while new rules are made.
That also, yes. I mean, over the years we would have seen, because this is what we got this time around. So we always get something like this. We got it in 2020 and years before. So this is what we get. But this, of course, the rules in here, they're contained in that has been modified and changed over the years. So the membership listing is available. That's the second issue I have. It's available in hard copy. I had written to the election chairman asking for it to be
Who is the
available
election
on
chairman?
soft copy. Mr. Ramesh Prasad Maharaj.
Who is he?
Yes, he is the the chairman of the elections committee. We have three chairmen of the election committee.
Who are they?
He is, of course, Mr. Ramesh Prasad Maharaj, Mrs. Marilyn Martin, and Dr. Carleen Baino Suku. Right? So those are the three chairmen of the UNC's election committee for the internals.
But Dr. Suku was not a member, isn't a member of the national executive right now?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So these are the three chairmen we have. So I wrote to them asking for the membership listing to be available in hard copy, because of course it will save the party cost. We will be going green in saving paper, because it's thousands of names. It's boxes of membership listings per constituency that we have to collect. That request was turned down, of course, so it's in hard copy. They stayed with the hard copy version. And what has been given on the membership listing is, of course, just the name and the street address, no contact numbers, no other address numbers or anything like that. Now, let me make a point, because people may say, and the political leader herself, the incumbent, has said that this is not a boys' club where you can get the listing of contacts and names of members and all of that. But I want to put it to you all this evening, which is the real politic, is that the persons who are vying for these NATEX positions are MPs and senators. The MPs are privy to the membership listing. I was an MP. They are privy to the membership listing. It is housed in their constituency offices or with the constituency executive. They are also responsible for making membership, so they have that data. They have the data of the membership listing. They have the data. The constituency executives will have that data to which the MPs has, and it's privy to also. So they have a current listing of membership, of list of members. They have the contacts, they have their addresses, they have their names, and they have access to the membership listing, every single one of them. Even though they are unopposed, they will still have access to that membership listing because they will have to mobilize. Even the councillors will have to mobilize for that election on June the 26th. So we are they have the unfair advantage. We are at a disadvantage as independent candidates who have none of these resources before us.
But wait,
so
hold on.
Yes.
Let me get something right. There are only 3 positions. Yes. There are only 3 positions that are being contested. The rest of positions are not being contested, so therefore, by default, those persons have already gone into the national executive.
Yes, but
so
their names are also, I have been informed that their names, not by the election committee, because I need to confirm that, but I understand that all of their names, the full star slate is good, their names are going to be on the ballot paper.
But what nonsense is that, though? That's like you telling me that that's like you putting somebody's name on a ballot sheet and they've already won the election by default, and that has happened in a local government election. If you remember, yes. Councillor Anil Baliram, when in that constituency in Caroni Central, he had won his election by default because he went up unopposed. I remember. I don't know if you recall that, right? That was a national election.
Yes.
So
yes.
I don't understand how is it that a national party can be putting up conducting an election and the ballot papers should only have 3 names on it, where you vote for either Mrs. Prasad Bisesa or Dr. Khan, you or Mr. Don Sylvester, and Mr. Ratiram or Dr. Glenn Ramadasing. Because yes. everybody else has won their positions by default, including all yes. the deputy leaders and the chairman and everybody else.
Agreed.
So then, yes. therefore, Ramona, the election is a sham. It's nothing but a joke.
For them, it's a strategy, I guess, for the star slate, it's a strategy to get the voters out.
Yeah, but you're you're still going to get the voters out because you still have the position of political leader.
Yeah. I agree with you.
For grabs.
I don't know what is the motivation behind putting all of the names on the ballot paper, even though they have already won their positions. I agree with you that there should just be those 3 positions that are being contested on the ballot paper. I, again, will write to the chairman asking and getting confirmation with respect to that aspect of the ballot paper and all of that. So,
no, okay, so you've told us about the membership listing, and I remember a period of time when membership listings used to be in large binders. So instead of boxes, you had a binder, and you had a binder from A to L or A to K, and then the rest to Z, which contained everybody in the UNC membership listing. But it seems to me that every time there's a UNC internal election, there is some level of change. And the level of change that happens is not the level of change that you really want as an outcome. So the change that the UNC membership is looking for is not the change in the election machinery and the way the election is carried on.
And that is why I'm saying it is engineered in the incumbents' favor. They have the unfair advantage. They control the listing. They control the process. They make the rules and regulations. And that is why I think if or when I'm voted in, I am very confident because I believe that the membership won't change. And I hope that I'm voted in, and if voted in, that these are some of the changes we would make. One of the first things I would advocate for on that NATEX is to change that rule where card-holding members are allowed to vote even though their names are not on the list.
I agree with you. I hear you
Yeah.
on that. So
And
there's
another change.
Go ahead. It seems as though we lost her. Ramona, you need to unmute your mic. You are right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and another change I would make also, what I would reintroduce on the NATEX if elected is that of the UNC Academy. Between 2020, since the last internals, and now there have been no membership drive. That's another issue, Shane. I cannot make membership for my party. Can you believe it? And persons who go in to make membership, I know there were forms that we sent in since 2016, 2017. We've been making membership, people come in. I was then MP. It's now that whole membership making drive is now controlled by a few on the NATEX. And if those few don't bring in the forms, then that membership is tossed aside.
But if you read the UNC Constitution, under the party organizer, the party organizer is the one responsible for ensuring that that the membership drive is an ongoing process, and he has a membership committee that consists of 6 or 7 people, right?
Yes.
That part, and this is for the society to know, and this is for the membership to know, and this is for persons will look at me and ask me, well, how do I know these things? It's a simple matter of reading the UNC Constitution and putting it into practice. So what Ms. Ramdale is saying, and what I am saying, is that the real politique that people are not seeing behind what is going on within the UNC framework as a political party is that the structure of the party is not, the structures within the party are not functioning effectively and according to the Constitution. So therefore, under the for membership drive, that falls under the party organizer. In terms of the election officer is responsible for the execution of the youth and women's election, the constituency elections, as well as the national executive elections, right?
And also preparing for local government and national elections, yes.
So and therefore, as a result of that, the elections officer should be a member of the screening committee. But Ramona will tell you that she's never been a member of the screening committee.
No, just I think once between 2015 and 2020, once I was a member of a committee. I don't know if it was, it was probably for local government, it was. And then thereafter, that office was removed from being on the screening committee.
Well, Ms. Ramdale.
So these are the things that needs to be changed, Shane, and I really hope the membership comes out this time around and make that necessary change. It's three posts that have been contested on the NATEX.
One is a heart, one is a smiley face, and one is a star sun, a sun star.
My sign, my symbol is a heart with a 1 inside that depicts or speaks about one love.
Yeah.
The UNC is well known. The founding members they're all well known of politicking on a national platform of one love, and that is what I want to bring back within the United National Congress also.
Okay, well, do you have any closing comments? Tell me, convince your people and convince the UNC members why it is important that they come out on Sunday the 26th.
I want to urge the UNC membership. I know that I've been listening to you for the past 2 years since the last internals. You are members of the party. You are loyal members of the party. You understand that we have been in opposition for too long. You want your party to win. You want to get back into government. You also understand that with the incumbent and the current leadership, we can no longer do that. We are not seen as viable as that vehicle to get back into government. And therefore, we need new leadership. We need change. If elected, I will start the process of effecting that change within the United National Congress. I really hope that you are up to that challenge, because we talk and we have discussions, and I really hope that you come out on June the 26th and vote for me as the elections officer.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramdale. Thank you very much for coming on to the show. and for
Thank
highlighting
you.
all of the issues that you have and putting forward your plans for the party. We go to a break, and when we come back, we have a firework waiting for the second half of our show.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Take care, Ramona. Hello, this is Dr. Shane Mohammed, geopolitical scientist and lecturer. I invite you to join me for a new exciting show on IETV, 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. The Real Politique is not an ordinary talk show, but one of education, enlightenment, and examination. Here we discuss not just the surface issues, but the factors, shortcomings, and lack of will to change the socio-economic and political realities facing our nation. We ask the hard questions, seek out the difficult answers, whilst at the same time creating a space for dialogue and discussion which all of society can learn, understand, and hopefully respond actively and for the greater good of the Republic. This is the Real Politique. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we got a little bit of insight as to what is happening in terms of the discrepancies within the UNC and within the internal structures of the party, and what is the issues that are arising in the run-up to the election. One important thing that was raised is that there are only 3 positions that are being contested, yet the party has taken a decision that they most likely will put a full slate of candidates on the ballot paper. In practicality, that makes absolutely no sense, because those persons don't need votes to win. They've already won their spots and won their positions by default. But what is a show, and what is the highlight, and what is the fire factor of a show? One like this, without bringing on a firework and a man that knows the politics and has served our country immaculately. He has continued to be a voice for the people. He has sat in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. He is very versed in the law, having practiced law for many years. And it is my esteemed pleasure to welcome on my show former Senator and Attorney at Law, Mr. Robin Montano. Good evening, Mr. Montano, and welcome to the Real Politique.
Good evening, Shane, and thank you very much for having me.
I hope you're well.
Well, I'm still alive.
That's a royal answer, because I remember the Queen Elizabeth II saying the very same thing. Now, you've been a member of the UNC, and you've been within the Parliament of the UNC fighting the cause. And you've also been one that has not bowed out, because you've been around. We've seen you speaking. We've had you on several platforms in terms of forums, discussing the politics. The first thing I want to raise with you is that within the last couple of weeks, we had Mrs. Prasad Bissessa call out Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis by indicating that she had gotten her name from a slave master. Is that where we should be in terms of our national politics in 2022?
Oh, gosh. I have to tell you that I was really hoping that we wouldn't go there, because as far as I'm concerned, both sides are as wrong as anything. I mean, so what? Everybody knows the history of slavery, or put another way, they ought to know the history of slavery. And everybody knows that basically the Africans, blacks, or whatever you want to call them, whatever is politically correct, because I don't mean any insult or whatsoever, were not allowed to, they weren't allowed to keep their culture, their language, their names, nothing. So everybody knows that black people in this country have names that, for want of a better word, are English or from the slave masters. The Indians, when they came to Trinidad, were allowed, because they came under slightly, and I want to emphasize that, slightly different circumstances. They were allowed to keep their language, their names, even their religion, and their culture. So in that respect, the Indians had it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst. The Indians had it slightly better. They were at 2.
I hear you
if
on
you
that.
understand what I mean.
Of course, and in my article this week I wrote about it, and I indicated as well that my descendants that came from India, they were given the last name John, and the last name John is an English name, John. But if you do the research, you would find that the last name Jan, Jaan or Jhaan, is what exactly exists in India, and is the original form of the last name. So therefore,
at the end of the day, what does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
What does it matter? I knew a man whose first name was Shirley. It turns out that Shirley was an ancestral family name, but his name was Shirley. Shirley is supposed to be a girl's name. What does it matter? I mean, this is a storm in a teacup, and we have so many other serious issues. I mean, really serious issues to be discussing. Like, for example, the present Attorney General is under, there's a serious question as to what has happened there, because, he became Attorney General, and then the Attorney General of necessity must be the defendant or the plaintiff, as the case may be, in any kind of lawsuit. So nominally he is there. So that's one thing. But, and here's where the but comes in, he was, the evidence that is in the public domain is that he was much more than just a note taker. He was actively involved in the defense of Mr. Kwaitang and somebody else. I can't even remember who it is now. But he was involved, and he wants to say that, oh, he was just a note taker. Well, let him look at the case of the Crown against Sussex, which is where this whole thing about justice not only being done, but being seen to be done, and the question of bias comes up. In that case, which was around 1920, 1922, I can't remember. But what happened was that this guy, Sussex, was appealing his conviction by 3 judges. And it turns out that when the 3 judges were in a room discussing the case, there was a clerk inside the room. Everybody agreed that the clerk had nothing to do with the case, and that he was just a clerk to the judges, and certainly took no part in the discussion in which the judges found this guy guilty. But when it went to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal held, and this is since, I'm saying 1920, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's 22 or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to look for it.
Since the early 1920s, this guy was, this precedent took place, and the Court of Appeal held that justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. And that is where Mr. Amor is wrong. Because even if he was just a simple note taker, he can't switch sides like that. That's a serious issue, and that needs to be ventilated in the country, not this question of names. Who gives a damn about, excuse my French.
No, go right ahead.
On TV. But who cares about Camille Robinson Regis having a slave name or otherwise, or Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisessa's name is Sushila or whatever. So what? So what? I mean, how do we get... look, there are serious issues here. And I don't know if you remember, but in or about February of this year, 5 men were basically practically murdered. I'm referring to the divers.
Yes, yes, yes.
When we could have got them out, they could have been gotten out, and the evidence that I've read in the newspapers, so I stand to be corrected, the evidence is that they were alive for about 36 hours after the accident.
Yeah.
So had the divers gone down, they could have done something right away, but they didn't. Now, no proper explanation has been done. There's been no commission of inquiry. Oh, a commission of inquiry has been appointed. Isn't that great? So what is this commission of inquiry doing? Sitting there in the air conditioning office, smoking cigars and drinking coffee? What are they doing? But everybody has forgotten about these divers. And you have a problem. What are you doing? Then you have the economy. I saw in the papers this morning that Unilever has just sent out dismissed termination notices to 100 workers. 100. Now, if you say that each worker has at least 4 dependents, let's bring it down. Let's say 3 dependents. That's 400 people being affected by that, which means the economy is crashing. What are you doing about that? And here we are discussing names. Oh, come on, pull the other one. It's got bells on it. Don't waste my time. I don't want to discuss whether Kamla has should be proud of her name or not. If I were her, I'd be proud of. I'm proud of my name. I like my name.
Yeah, your name is famous.
Well, I don't know about
your
that.
Name has political weight.
If I'm well known, it's because of my own efforts.
Oh, that's for true.
And for better or for worse. And there are people who like me and people who don't. Well,
but Mr. Montano,
people who like me, I say thank you very much. To the people who don't like me, I say suck my socks.
Mr. Montano, I need to contain myself, but let me ask you this. Do you think that Mrs. Prasad Bisessa needs to step aside, or does she deserve the opportunity to prove herself once more?
Oh gosh. How many times, how many opportunities? My God is a God of second, third, and 10th chances. But I am sure that even the Lord Almighty would not look upon this with too much favor. Ask yourself a simple question. Will Kamla Prasad Bisessa does she have a strategy that can lead the UNC to victory in the next election? Simple question.
No.
If so, what is that strategy? Or is her strategy that the PNM is failing so badly, and the truth is that they are failing, but the PNM is failing so badly that they should be, how shall I put it, they should be removed.
By default.
So regardless of the alternative, which is Mrs. Prasad Bisessa and the UNC, regardless of the alternative, we are getting rid of the PNM. So is it a case of Tweedledum and Tweedledee, the devil you know and the devil you don't know kind of business?
Yeah, but we all saw what happened in 2020. The PNM government was no less popular than they are today.
She should have gone then.
Exactly, and therefore she had her chance in 2020.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Shane. what has Mrs. Prasad Bissessa done? Let's forget about the 2015 to 2020. Let's just look at it now. What has Mrs. Prasad Bissessa done between then and for the last 2 years? What has she said? How you know, the test? One of the tests for leadership is how you inspire people. Does she inspire trust? And forget now, I'm not talking now to the diehard UNC who's going to close his eyes and put a blindfold on and all the rest of it and vote UNC no matter what. I'm talking now about the guy who is genuinely on the fence. Does she appeal to him? If the answer is yes, then fine, she should stay. But if the answer is no, and all the evidence suggests that the answer is no, if the answer is no, she should leave for the good of the party. I know Mrs. Prasad Bissessa personally and very well, and I consider her a friend of mine. I think she's a very nice person. So nothing I should be taken as saying should be, oh, I'm trying to bring her down. I'm not on that scene at all. The scene I'm on is simply this. Can she lead the party to victory? So you have to look at certain things. Number one, is she able to persuade those people who are on the fence and who might come over? Can she persuade enough of them? If the answer is yes, then fine, she should stay. If the answer is no, and you have to ask yourself this honestly, and if you feel that she can, I would ask you, why do you think that? What evidence have you seen that makes you feel that she should come, that she should be able to lead? I mean, you know, an opposition leader in Trinidad and Tobago has very little room to maneuver.
Mr. Montano, I am told, let me just interject. I'm being told by Master Control we need to take one little break and come back. So hold that thought, because I've written down what you're saying. And we're going to continue with that conversation because it's a very important one. So we'll take a break and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Hello, this is Dr. Shane Mohammed, geopolitical scientist and lecturer. I invite you to join me for a new exciting show on IETV, 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. The Real Politique is not an ordinary talk show, but one of education, enlightenment, and examination. Here we discuss not just the surface issues, but the factors, shortcomings, and lack of will to change the socio-economic and political realities facing our nation. We ask the hard questions, seek out the difficult answers, whilst at the same time creating a space for dialogue and discussion which all of society can learn, understand, and hopefully respond actively and for the greater good of the Republic. This is the Real Politique. All right, welcome back, and we are continuing our conversation with Mr. Montano, and his question was, can Mrs. Prasad Bissessa persuade people who are on the fence? And if the answer to that question is yes, then why? If the answer to that question is no, then why? And if the answer is yes, where is the evidence? So, Mr. Montano, we come back to you with the question. Where's the evidence? You're unmute, Mr. Montano. Unmute your mic.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Good.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Clearly.
Yes. I was going to raise the issue. One of the tests of leadership is that the people that you surround yourself with. A strong leader usually surrounds himself with strong people, a strong man or woman, as the case may be, will surround himself with strong subordinates, people who can lead and will be attractive to the general population. So let me ask you a blunt question. Who in the Senate, and I'm deliberately looking now at the Senate because they're appointed by the leader, who in the Senate would you say is a strong person, apart from Anil Roberts, who I happen to think, I think Anil is doing a good job. But besides Anil, can you name any of the other senators? And who amongst them? Ask yourself. No, Shane, you don't have to answer me, but I'm talking to the people
yeah.
who are looking at this.
Yes.
Which one of those senators do you think is good? And if you don't think any of them are good, then why not? And what does that say about the person who appointed them? And don't come and tell me it's the president. The president appoints on the advice, the 6 opposition senators are appointed on the advice of the leader of the opposition. So basically it's the leader of the opposition who appoints them. And let's not get technical, which we love to do in this country. Let's deal with the things straight up and straight on. Who do you think is a strong person? And if you think that they're so strong, what have they done? Have they made a name for themselves in the Senate? What are they doing? Because quite frankly, I don't know the names of these senators. I'm pushed, and I don't know I'm pushed to try and even know what they look like. Why? This can't be right. And either you have people who are strong and who can put fire in the belly of the country, or you don't. And if you don't, then for crying out loud, admit that you don't and move away now. We have to think about what is right for the country, not what is right for you personally, but what is right for the country.
Do you think that Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar, do you think that Dr. Khan is a formidable candidate for the post of political leader?
The short answer to that is, well, he could be. I am not a member of the UNC today, and I don't know what is happening inside the party, so I can't answer that question in full. But what I would say is this: I know Fuad Khan very well. I think he's a very able person. He's a good doctor. He's my doctor. He's a good person, and he knows his stuff very well. I also saw that he went into Barataria, Salman Barataria, and he won that seat, which was a PNM seat. So obviously he has got some very good political skills. I believe that if given half of a chance, he could do very well. Would I vote for him? Yes. Do I think that he ought to be given the chance? Yes. If the choice is between him and Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar, then as far as I'm concerned, there's no contest. If the choice is between him and Jesus Christ or somebody else, well then, fine. I will have to look and see. But certainly, given the choice that we are being given, I would vote for Fuad.
Do you think that UNC, led by Dr. Fuad Khan, can take on any member of the PNM who is leading?
You know, I was talking a little earlier about strong leaders. Fuad is a strong man, and he's not afraid of having strong men and women. When I say men, I include women. When I say women, I include men. He's not afraid of having strong people around him. And that is what is important. If you're a strong man, then yes, I think that he could and would do a good job. I don't think he would spend his time weaseling about name calling and all the rest of it. I think he would spend his time, if he were prime minister of this country, I think he would spend his time being prime minister and being on the ball and making sure that his ministers were working. You know, you can't say that a lot of these ministers are working. The Minister of Health is a joke. The Minister of Works, I don't know what he's doing, but all I know is that the potholes in Port of Spain seem to have gotten worse since he became minister. What is he doing besides buying Mercedes-Benz and sitting in his office drinking coffee? What is he doing? I don't see Fuad. I'm sorry, I should say Dr. Khan.
No,
I don't
you could
see
say
Dr.
Fuad.
Khan. Well, yes, he's my friend.
Yeah, you could say Fuad.
Thank you. I don't see Fuad putting up with that kind of nonsense. I mean, if I was in his, assuming but not accepting, of course, and I'm not angling for a job, but if I was in his cabinet, I think he would be the first one, and I did something stupid, he would be the first one to call me up and say, Robin, you're doing a load of rubbish here, huh? You shouldn't have done this, you should have done that, and you shouldn't be doing the other, you should have been doing it this way or whatever. You get the point I'm trying to make. I don't think he would pussyfoot around me because he knows he would get cussed right back. I'm not going to take any nonsense from anybody. But at the same time, I think that, what should I say? I think that he is a very fair-minded person and a very capable person. I can't say more than that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Montano. I really appreciate you coming on the Real Politique, and especially on my inaugural show. And I thank you for your perspective. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we have had two persons who've served in the UNC. Mr. Montano has served in opposition as a UNC senator. Ms. Ramdial served in government and in opposition. And Mr. Montano is now a senior politician, if I may call him as a politician still, if he would accept that title. But he is a senior politician, he's a senior statesman. And for Mr. Montano to endorse Dr. Khan, you know, I have also put on in my article in the Sunshine this week that I reserve the right as a political scientist to call out persons on what is right and what is wrong, to give critique where it's necessary, and to give compliments when it's due. And we've all come to one conclusion, that there's no personal vendetta here against Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar. It's a matter of, at the end of the day, it's a matter of which leader is capable of winning an election, that is capable, and who has the foresight and the vision to take us as a people forward. And we had an opportunity, a huge, a mammoth opportunity at the grasp of our hands in August of 2020, where we saw an unpopular government regain governance and regain power by the slip of a finger. There was very little that could have been done in terms of, there was so much, I should say, that could have been done by Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar. We are in a state where the UNC, whatever happens in the UNC going forward, will determine how our country goes forward as well. Because one is a subset of the other in terms of political party and governance structure. Next week, we bring on a heavyweight. And I look forward to you tuning in as we go, as I'm sitting with you and we discuss the real politique of Trinidad and Tobago and what is happening just not at the surface, but way under the iceberg. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sitting and listening in and joining in and tuning in to my show. We will be interactive sooner rather than later, and you will get a chance to speak with me and air your views as we go on. So thank you again for joining me, and do have a very pleasant evening, and God bless Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.